The heart monitor flatlined at 2:47 a.m. The patient wasn't supposed to die. Not here. Not tonight. Nurse Sarah Chen stood over the body, her hands steady despite the chaos erupting around her. The ER attending was frozen. The residents were panicking. But Sarah had seen worse. Much worse. She reached for a syringe the hospital didn't officially stock. Her fingers moved with muscle memory from another life, a life her colleagues knew nothing about. Outside, black SUVs were pulling into the parking lot. The siege was about to begin. And Sarah was the only one who could save them all. Sarah's hands moved faster than her mind could process. The syringe pierced the patient's chest. 3 milliliters of epinephrine, directly into the heart muscle. Dr. Marcus Webb stood 5 feet away, mouth open. "What the hell are you doing?" His voice cracked. "That's not protocol." "That's not." The monitor beeped. Once, twice, then a steady rhythm. The patient's chest rose. Sarah stepped back, placing the empty syringe on the crash cart. Her face showed nothing. No triumph. No fear. Just the practiced calm of someone who had done this 100 times before. In places where protocol didn't exist, where saving a life meant breaking every rule in the book. "He's stable," she said quietly. Dr. Webb's face turned red. "You just performed an unauthorized procedure." "I'm reporting this too." The lights flickered, then went out completely. Emergency generators kicked in 3 seconds later, bathing the ER in harsh red light. But something was wrong. The backup systems should have been seamless. This felt intentional. Sarah's instincts, the ones she'd spent 5 years trying to bury, screamed at her to move. She walked to the window. Outside, the parking lot was empty. Too empty. The usual security guard wasn't at his post. The ambulance bay was dark, and there at the perimeter fence, she saw them. For black SUVs, no lights. No markings. Her blood went cold. "Everyone stay calm," Dr. Webb announced to the ER. "Just a power fluctuation. We're fine." But they weren't fine. Sarah knew what those vehicles meant. She'd ridden in them. Commanded missions from them. But that was before. Before she'd walked away. Before she'd traded her tactical gear for scrubs and tried to forget the things she'd done in the dark corners of the world. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text was 2 words. "He's here." Sarah's jaw tightened. She deleted the message and pocketed her phone. Then she turned back to the ER, scanning faces, patients, staff, visitors. One of them didn't belong, the patient she'd just saved. His eyes were open now, watching her. Not with gratitude. With recognition, their eyes met. And in that moment, Sarah knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't a medical emergency. This was an extraction. Or an execution. The patient's lips moved, forming silent words. "They're coming for me." Before Sarah could respond, the main entrance doors exploded inward. Glass shattered across the waiting room. People screamed. And through the smoke and chaos, 6 figures in tactical gear stormed into the hospital, weapons raised. The lead operative's voice boomed. "This facility is now under federal control." Dr. Webb stumbled backward. "This is a hospital. You can't." A red laser dot appeared on his chest. He shut up. Sarah didn't move. Didn't flinch. She'd been on the other side of these raids too many times. She knew how this worked. Knew what came next. The operative's eyes swept the room, then locked on her patient. Target acquired. Prepare for extraction. 2 soldiers moved toward the bed, and that's when Sarah stepped forward. "Stop." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight, authority, the kind that came from years of command, not from scrubs and a hospital badge. The lead operative's head turned. His eyes narrowed behind the tactical mask. "Ma'am, step aside." "This doesn't concern you." Sarah stood her ground. "This is my patient. He's in critical condition. Moving him will kill him. That's not your concern. It's exactly my concern." The operative took a step closer. "Last warning, move or we move you." Sarah's hand drifted to her pocket, not for a weapon. For the small leather case she kept hidden there. The one she swore she'd never open again. But if she was right about who sent these men, she might not have a choice. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will change everything. You think you know about this nurse? The operative raised his weapon, and Sarah made her decision. She pulled out the leather case and flipped it open. The room went silent. Asterisk, the badge inside the leather case caught the emergency lights, gold, embossed, with an eagle and 13 stars, a seal most Americans had never seen, one that made grown men in tactical gear stop dead in their tracks. The lead operative's weapon lowered half an inch. That's not possible. His voice was different now, uncertain. Sarah kept her expression neutral. Make the call. Operative's hand went to his radio. Command, we have a situation. He paused, glancing at the badge again. There's a clearance level 7 in the building. Requesting verification. Static crackled. Then a voice, sharp and authoritative, denied. Mission parameters unchanged. Extract the target. The operative looked torn. Sarah could see it in his eyes. The training that said to follow orders. The survival instinct that said you don't cross someone with level 7 clearance. She stepped closer. Close enough that only he could hear her next words. That man has intel on 3 active terrorist cells operating on U.S. soil. You extract him now. In his condition, he dies. And those cells go active. 27 targets. 6 major cities. You want that blood on your hands? It was a bluff. Mostly, she didn't know what the patient knew. But she knew the look of a high-value asset when she saw one. And she knew how to read operators. The operative's jaw clenched. Stand down, he ordered his team. Then, into his radio, we need medical clearance before extraction. Patient is critical. The voice on the other end exploded with profanity, but the operative held firm. Sarah nodded once. Respect. Then she turned back to her patient. He was watching her with new eyes. You're not just a nurse, he whispered. Right now I am. She checked his vitals. Heart rate elevated but stable. And right now, you're my patient. So you're going to tell me who you are and why they want you badly enough to storm a civilian hospital? He coughed, wincing. My name is Thomas Carver. I'm NSA. I have information about Operation Nightfall. Sarah's blood ran cold. Operation Nightfall. She knew that name. Everyone with her clearance knew that name. It was the operation that didn't officially exist. The one that had disappeared 16 agents and left a trail of bodies across Eastern Europe. I thought Nightfall was shut down. It was all but someone's restarting it. Someone on the inside. He grabbed her wrist, surprising strength in his grip. I found the orders. I have proof. But they're trying to silence me before the lights died again. This time, they didn't come back on. The backup generators were offline, completely in the darkness. Sarah heard the sound of more boots. More vehicles. The siege was escalating. Dr. Webb's voice cut through the chaos. Everyone, remain calm. Security will. An explosion rocked the building. Not close. Maybe the parking garage. But enough to shake the walls and send medical equipment crashing to the floor. People screamed, and in the red glow of the emergency exit signs. Sarah saw the operative grab his radio. Command, we're under attack. I repeat, we are under static. His radio was dead. Jammed. Sarah's tactical mind kicked into gear. Multiple entry points. Communications blackout. Systematic elimination of backup systems. This wasn't an extraction anymore. This was an assault. Lock down the she ordered. Dr. Webb stared at her. What? Lock it down. Now, her voice had changed. No longer the quiet nurse. This was the voice of someone who had commanded soldiers in combat zones. Get everyone away from the windows. Move critical patients to interior rooms. Anyone who can walk, get them to the basement level. Can't just another explosion. Closer this time. The West Wing. Dr. Webb finally moved, shouting orders to the nursing staff. Sarah turned to the operative. How many men do you have? 6. But without comes you have me. That makes 7. She grabbed a pair of surgical scissors from the crash cart. Not a weapon, but it would have to do. Your primary objective is protecting the civilians in this hospital. Secondary objective is keeping Carver alive. Understood? The operative looked at her. Really looked at her. At the way she held herself, the way her eyes scanned for threats, the absolute certainty in her voice. He nodded. Yes, ma'am. Good, deploy your men at the main choke points. North stairwell, south corridor, and the ambulance bay. I'll handle the window exploded inward. A canister rolled across the floor, spewing thick white smoke. Tear gas. Sarah's eyes burned, but she didn't panic. She'd been gassed before, trained in it. She dropped low, breathing shallow through her sleeve. Through the smoke, she saw them. 6 more figures, rappelling down from the roof. These ones wore different gear. Black masks with no insignia. Mercenaries, not federal agents. They weren't here to extract Thomas Carver. They were here to kill him and everyone who got in their way. Sarah grabbed the operative's arm. Get Carver to OR3. Its interior reinforced doors. Go now. What about you? She looked at the advancing mercenaries. At the terrified patients and staff. At the hospital she'd spent 5 years trying to turn into a sanctuary from her old life. I'll buy you time. The operative hesitated for just a moment. Then he nodded and moved, half-carrying Carver toward the surgical wing. Sarah stood alone in the smoke-filled ER as the mercenaries advanced. She had no weapon. No backup, no armor. But she had something they didn't expect. She had nothing left to lose, asterisk. The first mercenary came through the smoke with his. Weapon raised, Sarah was already moving. She grabbed a metal 4-pole and swung it like a staff. Catching the barrel of his rifle and forcing it upward, his shot went wild, punching into the ceiling tiles. Before he could adjust, she drove the pole's base into his knee. The crack was audible, even over the screams. He went down hard. She stripped the rifle from his hands in one fluid motion, checked the magazine, and chambered a round. Muscle memory from 1,000 training drills. The other mercenaries opened fire. Sarah dove behind the admissions desk as bullets tore through medical charts and computer monitors. She counted the shots. 5 shooters. 3 with automatic weapons, 2 with sidearms. They were spreading out, trying to flank her. Amateur hour? She popped up and put 2 rounds into the fire suppression system. Water exploded from the ceiling, flooding the ER and reducing visibility even further. In the chaos, she moved, low and fast. Using the overturned gurneys and equipment carts for cover, Sarah flanked left. She came up behind the second mercenary and delivered a precise strike to his carotid artery. He dropped without a sound. 2 down. For to go, who the hell is she? One of them shouted. Sarah didn't answer. She was already moving again, using the water and smoke to her advantage. These men were trained, but they were used to fighting in the open. In war zones. Not in the confined chaos of a hospital. This was her territory now. She heard footsteps behind her, spun, fired once. The mercenary's weapon clattered to the floor as he grabbed his shoulder, screaming, ".3 down." A hand grabbed her ankle from under a gurney. The first mercenary, the one with the shattered knee. He yanked hard, trying to pull her down. Sarah let herself fall, but controlled it. She twisted as she went, bringing her elbow down on his temple. He went still. She grabbed his radio and pressed it to her ear. Static then. Second team in position. Surgical wing is locked down. We need charges too. Sarah crushed the radio under her heel. They had teams in the surgical wing. Where Carver was, where the operative had taken him, she had to move. Fast. But she couldn't leave the ER undefended. There were still patients here. Staff. Dr. Webb was huddled behind the nurse's station with 3 residents, their faces pale with terror. Sarah caught his eye. Get everyone to the basement now. Use the service elevator. It's offline, one of the residents stammered. Then use the stairs. Move in groups of 5. Stay quiet. Stay low, go. Dr. Webb finally found his spine. He started organizing people, getting them moving toward the stairwell. Sarah turned to face the remaining mercenaries. They were regrouping now, more cautious. They'd seen what she could do. The lead mercenary stepped forward, his weapon trained on her chest. Drop it. Calculated the angles. 4 of them. One of her. She could take maybe 2 before they gunned her down. Not good enough odds. She lowered the rifle. Let it clatter to the floor. The mercenary moved closer, keeping his weapon steady. Who are you? A nurse. He laughed. Nurses don't move like that. Don't shoot like that. I've seen combat veterans with less skill. So I'll ask again, who are you? Sarah said nothing. He raised his weapon, finger tightening on the trigger. Last chance. The emergency exit door burst open behind the mercenaries. The federal operative Sarah had spoken to earlier came through with his team, weapons blazing. The mercenaries spun, returning fire. The ER became a war zone. Sarah dropped to the floor, grabbed her rifle, rolled behind cover. This was getting out of control. Too many shooters. Too many civilian casualties waiting to happen. She needed to end this. Fast. Her eyes landed on the oxygen tanks against the wall. A terrible idea formed in her mind. Desperate. Dangerous. Definitely against. Protocol. She aimed carefully and fired. The tank exploded with a deafening boom, sending mercenaries and federal agents diving for cover. The blast wave shattered what few windows remained intact and set off. Every fire alarm in the building, in the ringing silence that followed, Sarah's voice cut through. Enough. Everyone froze. She stood, rifle pointed at the floor, hands visible. You want Carver? You'll have to go through me. And I promise you, more of you will die than is worth whatever you're being paid. The lead mercenary stared at her through his mask. Then slowly, he lowered his weapon. Fall back, he ordered his team. This isn't worth it. They retreated through the broken windows, disappearing into the night. The federal operatives started to pursue, but Sarah stopped them. Let them go. We have bigger problems. She was right. The surgical wing was still under attack, and she had a patient to protect. Sarah grabbed extra magazines from the downed mercenaries and headed for the stairs. The federal operative fell in beside her. I don't know who you are, ma'am, but I'm damn glad you're on our side. Sarah didn't respond. She was too busy calculating. The surgical wing had 3 entry points. Limited cover. And if the mercenaries had charges, they could breach the reinforced doors in under 2 minutes. They had to get there first. She took the stairs 3 at a time. The operative and his team struggling to keep up. When they reached the 3rd floor, Sarah heard it. The high-pitched whine of a breaching charge. Being armed, they were seconds away from blowing the door. Sarah kicked open the stairwell door and sprinted down the corridor. The mercenaries at the surgical wing door turned. Up. Weapons rising. But Sarah was faster. She slid the last 10 feet like a baseball player stealing home. Rifled up, firing in controlled bursts. 2 mercenaries went down. The 3rd dove for cover, his hands slapping the wall-mounted emergency alarm. Lockdown sirens wailed through the hospital, and somewhere in the building, someone else heard those sirens. Someone who was about to make this situation a whole lot more complicated because Sarah's old life wasn't just catching up to her, it was about to collide with her new one in the worst way possible. Sarah reached the surgical wing door just as the breaching charge detonated. The blast threw her backward, slamming her into the wall. Her ears rang, her vision blurred, but she forced herself up, rifle raised. Through the smoke and debris, she saw them pouring into the surgical wing. Not mercenaries this time. These were professionals. Military contractors in full tactical gear. Moving with precision and coordination, someone had escalated. Sarah keyed the emergency intercom. OR3, this is Chen. How many hostiles inside? Dr. Webb's voice crackled back, terrified. 6. They have us pinned down. Their gunfire cut him off. Sarah's jaw clenched. She turned to the federal operative. Cover the north approach. Nobody gets behind me. Ma'am, you can't go in there alone, that's an order. The operative's training overrode his confusion. He nodded and positioned his team. Sarah checked her rifle. 12 rounds left. Not enough. Never enough. She moved through the shattered doorway in a low crouch. Using the surgical equipment and overturned gurneys for cover, the contractors had taken positions around OR3, establishing a perimeter. They weren't rushing in. They were being methodical, patient. That meant Carver was still alive, still valuable enough to take intact. Sarah spotted their squad leader. A tall man with cold eyes, speaking into his radio. Package is secured. Beginning extraction protocol. 8 at 2 minutes. 2 minutes. She had 2 minutes to stop this before they got Carver out of the building and disappeared him forever. Before everyone who knew about Operation Nightfall ended up in a black site or a shallow grave. She couldn't let that happen. Sarah made her move. She fired twice, hitting the overhead lights and plunging the wing into darkness. Then she was on them, moving like a ghost through the chaos. The first contractor never saw her coming. She swept his legs and used his body as a shield as his teammates opened fire. 3 rounds hit his vest before she dumped him and rolled behind a medication cart. Return fire shredded the cart, pills and glass exploding around her. Sarah came up firing. 1 shot, center mass. The contractor went down. She moved again before they could acquire her position. This was the dance she'd tried to forget. The rhythm of combat. Move, shoot, move. Never stay still. Never give them a target. But she was outnumbered and outgunned. The squad leader barked orders, and his men began to surround her. Professional, disciplined, they were herding her into kill zone. Sarah's back hit a wall. She was trapped. The squad leader stepped forward, weapon trained on her head. Drop it now. Sarah's finger hovered over the trigger. She could take him. Maybe one more before they cut her down. But that wouldn't save Carver. Wouldn't save the hospital staff in OR3. She needed a different play. You don't know who you're working for, she said, keeping her voice steady. Operation Nightfall. The orders you're following. They're not coming from official channels. Squad leader's expression didn't change. I don't need to know. I follow orders. Asterisk, even when those orders mean killing American citizens? Covering up war crimes? Every war has costs. Sarah's eyes narrowed. I've heard that before. From people who ended up in prison. Or dead. For just a moment, uncertainty flickered across the squad leader's face. That's when the door behind him exploded. Not from a breaching charge. From something much bigger, the concussive force sent everyone sprawling. Sarah hit the ground hard, debris raining down around her. Her ears were ringing so badly she couldn't hear anything but a high-pitched whine. Through the dust and smoke, she saw him. A man in a black suit. No tactical gear. No weapon visible. But he moved with an authority that made the contractors freeze in place. He held up a badge. Even through her blurred vision, Sarah recognized the seal. Department of Defense. Director-level clearance. This operation is over, the man announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. By order of the Secretary of Defense, all personnel are to stand down immediately. The squad leader's weapon wavered. Sir, we have orders from... Your orders are rescinded. Anyone who fires another shot will be tried for treason. The contractors looked at each other. Then, slowly, they lowered their weapons. Sarah struggled to her feet, using the wall for support. Her ribs screamed where she'd hit the ground. Probably cracked. The man in the suit turned to her. His eyes widened in recognition. Agent Chen, we've been looking for you. Sarah's blood ran cold. That title, that name. She hadn't been called that in 5 years. I'm not an agent anymore, she said quietly. That's not what your service record says. He pulled out a tablet, scrolling through files. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen, Special Activities Division, 13 years of classified service, 47 successful operations in hostile territory. The agency's most decorated field operative, Dr. Webb, emerging from OR3, stared at Sarah like he'd never seen her before. Lieutenant Colonel, he whispered. Sarah didn't look at him. Couldn't? I resigned. 5 years ago, the man in the suit shook his head. You requested a leave of absence. It was never approved. Which means you're still on active duty. Which means you're subject to recall at any time. I'm done with that life. I'm afraid that's not your choice to make. He gestured to the contractors, who were being zip-tied by the federal operatives. This situation proves exactly why we need you back. Operation Nightfall is active again. Someone on the inside is using it to eliminate witnesses and cover up illegal operations. We need someone we can trust to investigate. Find someone else. There's no one else. You're the only operative who worked on the original Nightfall task force who's still alive. The weight of those words settled over Sarah like a shroud. Everyone else from her old team, dead. How? She asked. Accidents, suicides, one house fire, all within the last 6 months. He met her eyes. You disappeared into this hospital? Went dark. That's probably the only reason you're still breathing. Sarah looked around at the destroyed surgical wing, at Dr. Webb and the terrified staff, at Thomas Carver, still alive because she'd stood her ground at the life she'd tried to build. Now crumbling around her. I need time to think. The man in the suit checked his watch. You have 12 hours. Then we're pulling you back in, voluntarily or otherwise. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Agent Chen, what you did here tonight. That was some of the finest combat operations I've ever seen. The agency needs people like you. The hospital needs me too. The hospital has plenty of nurses. The country only has one Sarah Chin. He left, taking the contractors with him. Sarah stood alone in the wreckage, feeling the weight of 2 lives pressing down on her shoulders. Dr. Webb approached slowly. You saved us all, he said quietly. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Sarah finally looked at him, saw the respect in his eyes, the gratitude, and the fear. I'm still just a nurse, Dr. Webb. No. He shook his head. You're something much more than that. Sarah wanted to argue. Wanted to insist that the person who'd fought through this hospital wasn't who she really was, but she'd be lying, because the truth was. She'd never stopped being Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen. She'd just been pretending. Sarah spent the next 8 hours in the hospital basement, helping treat the wounded, 43 people injured in the siege, mostly minor. Smoke inhalation, cuts from flying glass, panic attacks, 3 critical cases that required immediate surgery, none dead. Sarah had made sure of that. She worked in silence, her hands steady, as she sutured a nasty laceration on a security guard's arm. The guard kept staring at her like she was a stranger. Maybe she was. Is it true? He finally asked. What they're saying? That you're some kind of special forces soldier? Sarah didn't answer. She finished the last stitch and bandaged his arm. Down the hall, she could hear the whispers. The hospital staff, trying to reconcile the quiet nurse they'd worked alongside for 5 years with the woman who'd single-handedly held off a military assault. Dr. Webb found her in the supply closet, restocking trauma kits. The board wants to meet with you, he said. I'm sure they do. They want to thank you. Give you a commendation. Maybe even I'm resigning. The words came out before she'd fully decided. But as soon as she said them, Sarah knew they were true. Dr. Webb's face fell. Sarah, no. You can't. This hospital needs you. This hospital needs a nurse who can focus on medicine, not someone with a target on her back. Yes. She closed the trauma kit and met his eyes. Everyone around me is in danger. You saw what happened tonight. Those contractors didn't care about civilian casualties. Next time, people will die. Next time, you'll save them, like you did tonight. Sarah shook her head. I can't live in both worlds anymore. I have to choose. And you're choosing to go back? To that life? She didn't answer. Because she still didn't know, her phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. Carver wants to see you. Or 3. Sarah found Thomas Carver sitting up in bed, looking far better than someone who'd been at death's door 6 hours ago. The federal operative who'd fought alongside her stood guard at the door. Carver smiled weakly when he saw her. "Lieutenant Colonel Chen, I looked you up. Don't believe everything you read. Your file is 70% redacted." "That's usually a good sign," he winced as he shifted position. "Thank you. For saving my life? Twice? Just doing my job?" "Which job? The nurse or the operative?" Sarah pulled up a chair. "What did you want to tell me?" Carver's expression turned serious. "Operation Nightfall. I know why it's been reactivated. I'm listening. 3 months ago, I was part of a team analyzing metadata from foreign intelligence intercepts. We found something. A pattern. Encrypted communications between a US-based cell and known terrorist organizations. How high does it go? High enough that when I reported it, my entire team was reassigned within 48 hours. Scattered across different agencies. 2 weeks later, the first one died. Car accident. Then another. And another. Someone's cleaning house. Not just someone. Someone with access to active duty personnel files, mission logs, classified operations." Carver leaned forward. "I think it's someone inside the Special Activities Division." Sarah's former division. Her old command. "Do you have proof?" Carver reached under his pillow and pulled out a small USB drive. "Everything I found? Communications logs, financial transfers, personnel movements. It's all here." Sarah took the drive, feeling its weight. This tiny piece of plastic held enough information to bring down traitors. Or get her killed. "Why give this to me?" "Because you're the only one I can trust. You've been out of the game for 5 years. Nobody knows where your loyalties lie. And after tonight," he smiled, "after tonight, I know you're one of the good ones." Sarah pocketed the drive. "I'll look at it. That's all I ask." She stood to leave, but Carver stopped her. "Chen, they're going to try to force you back in? The agency. They'll use every trick in the book. Duty, honor, patriotism. Don't let them." "Why not?" "Because the only way you survive this is if you stay unpredictable. The moment you're back under their command, you're a target. Stay independent. Stay dangerous." Sarah nodded and left. The federal operative followed her into the hallway. "Ma'am, I need to escort you to a secure location. For debriefing? I have patients to check on. Have my orders." Sarah stopped walking, turned to face him. "And I gave you orders during the siege. You followed them? Why?" The operative shifted uncomfortably. "Because you knew what you were doing. Because you saved lives." "I'm still that same person. Still making the same calls. So when I tell you I'm not going anywhere until I'm ready, you're going to respect that. Understood?" The operative looked like he wanted to argue. Then he nodded. "Yes, ma'am. But I have to stay with you. For your protection." "Fine, but stay back. And keep quiet." Sarah made her rounds through the hospital, checking on patients, talking to staff, trying to hold on to the life she'd built here, even as it slipped through her fingers. At 6 a.m., she found herself in the staff locker room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She looked the same. Same dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Same tired eyes. Same scrubs, now torn and blood-stained. But everything had changed. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a call. "No caller ID," she answered. "Chen, Lieutenant Colonel." The voice was female, crisp and authoritative. "This is Director Catherine Morrison, Special Activities Division. We need to talk." Sarah's grip tightened on the phone. Morrison, her old commanding officer. The woman who'd recruited her out of the Army Rangers 15 years ago. I have nothing to say to you." "Then listen. Operation Nightfall wasn't shut down. It was reclassified. And someone has been using it to run unauthorized black ops for the last 18 months. Arms deals, assassinations, even domestic surveillance. And you think I can help? I know you can. You were the best field operative I ever commanded. You have instincts that can't be taught. And right now, I need those instincts to find out who's behind this before more people die." Sarah walked to the window. Outside, the sun was rising over the city. A new day. A new chance. If I do this, she said slowly, I do it my way. No oversight, no check-ins. I work alone, Sarah, those are my terms. Take them or leave them. A long pause. Then, agreed. But you need to know something. The person behind this, they know you're back in play. And they're going to come for you. Let them come. Sarah hung up and pocketed the phone. She'd made her choice not to go back to her old life. Not to stay in her new one, but to forge something different. Something that used all of who she was, the nurse and the operative, the healer and the warrior. She walked back into the hospital, head held high, ready to face whatever came next, and in a black SUV 3 blocks away. Someone watched her through binoculars and made a phone call. She's back in play, the voice said. Activate the contingency. The real war was just beginning. Asterisk, the black helicopters arrived at noon, 3 of them, circling the hospital before touching down in the parking lot. Patients and staff crowded the windows, watching with a mixture of fear and fascination. Sarah was in the ICU when she heard the commotion. She finished checking Mrs. Rodriguez's vitals. Before heading downstairs, the hospital lobby had transformed into a military staging area. Soldiers in dress uniforms lined the walls. Not combat gear this time. This was official. Ceremonial Dr. Webb stood near the admissions desk, looking overwhelmed. When he saw Sarah, relief flooded his face. Sarah, thank God, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. Sarah's stomach tightened. She'd expected the agency to send someone, but not like this. Not with this much ceremony. The crowd parted, and he walked through. 4 stars on each shoulder. Ribbons covering his chest. A man in his 60s with steel gray hair and the bearing of someone spent 40 years in command. General James Hawthorne, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the most powerful military officer in the United States. Sarah's breath caught. She'd met Hawthorne twice before, both times in classified briefings. He'd never acknowledged her existence in public until now. Hawthorne stopped 5 feet away from her. His eyes swept over her blood-stained scrubs, her bruised face, the exhaustion written into every line of her body. Then he came to attention and saluted. The lobby went dead. Silent Sarah stood frozen. Every eye in the hospital was on her. Dr. Webb's mouth hung open. The nursing staff looked like they'd witnessed a miracle. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen, Hawthorne's voice boomed through the lobby. On behalf of the President of the United States and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I am here to formally end your leave of absence and restore you to active duty. Sarah didn't move, didn't salute back. Sir, I never requested your leave was granted under duress 5 years ago following the incident in Yemen. Command felt you needed time to recover. But recent events have proven that your country still needs you. He lowered his salute but remained at attention. I'm here to offer you a choice, Colonel. Return to active duty with a promotion to full colonel and lead the task force investigating Operation Nightfall, or remain here in this hospital as a civilian. The words hung in the air. Dr. Webb stepped forward, his voice shaking. General, with all due respect, this woman has been one of our finest nurses for 5 years. She's saved countless lives. She's a decorated combat veteran who's prevented 3 terrorist attacks on American soil, personally eliminated over 40 high-value targets, and commanded operations in 17 countries. Hawthorne's voice softened slightly. Dr. Webb, I understand your attachment, but you need to understand what you've had working in your RERs. This isn't just a nurse. This is a national hero. Sarah finally found her voice. I'm not a hero, sir. I'm just someone who made hard choices. The hardest choices? Hawthorne pulled a folder from his jacket. I've read your file, Chen. All of it. Including the parts that made grown men in the Pentagon lose sleep. He opened the folder, revealing documents stamped top secret. The embassy rescue in Kabul, the chemical weapons facility in Syria, the hostage extraction in Somalia. With each word, Dr. Webb's eyes grew wider. You saved 43 lives last night, Hawthorne continued. But over your career, you've saved thousands. You stopped attacks that would have killed tens of thousands more. And you did it all while carrying wounds most people couldn't survive. He closed the folder. The Yemen incident. Your entire team killed in an ambush. You fought your way out alone, carrying classified intel through 40 miles of hostile territory with a bullet in your spine. Sarah's jaw clenched. She didn't talk about Yemen, ever. Doctor said you'd never walk again, Hawthorne said quietly. You were walking within 6 months. Running within a year. Back in the field within 18 months, I had good doctors. You had extraordinary willpower. He met her eyes. And that's what we need now. Someone who doesn't quit. Someone who can't be broken. Sarah looked around the lobby, at the faces staring at her with new understanding, new respect, and yes, new fear. The federal operative from last night stood near the back, now at attention. The same man who'd almost arrested her 12 hours ago? Now he looked at her like she was a living legend. The mission in Nightfall, Sarah said carefully. If I take it, I work alone. No oversight. Agreed. And when it's done, I walk away. For good this time. Hawthorne hesitated. If that's what you want? It is. He nodded slowly. Then he reached into his jacket again and pulled out a small case. He opened it, revealing a medal. The Distinguished Service Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor. This was supposed to be presented to you 5 years ago, Hawthorne said, for Yemen, but you were already gone by the time the paperwork cleared. He stepped forward and pinned the medal to her scrubs. The lobby erupted in applause. Sarah stood rigid, fighting the emotions threatening to overwhelm her. She'd walked away from all of this. The medals, the recognition, the glory. She'd wanted simple, quiet, peace. But peace was a luxury she'd never really had. Hawthorne saluted again. This time, Sarah returned it. When he lowered his hand, he smiled, a rare expression on his weathered face. Welcome back, Colonel Chen. Your country is grateful for your service. I haven't agreed yet, sir. You will. We glanced at the destroyed, the damaged surgical wing. Because you're not the kind of person who can stand by while people suffer, whether they're bleeding out in a combat zone or coding in an emergency room. You save people, Chen. It's what you do. He turned and walked back toward the helicopters. His entourage following Sarah stood alone in the center of the lobby. The medal heavy on her chest, Dr. Webb approached slowly. Why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted to forget. Can you? Forget? Sarah looked at her hands. The same hands that had performed CPR on countless patients, the same hands that had pulled triggers in the dark, healer and warrior forever intertwined. No, she admitted. I don't think I can. One of the nurses, Jennifer, who'd worked with Sarah for 3 years, stepped forward. Whatever you decide, wherever you go, just know that you made a difference here. To all of us. Sarah's throat tightened. Thank you. She walked back through the hospital one last time, memorizing the corridors, the smell of antiseptic, the steady beep of heart monitors. This had been her sanctuary, her hiding place. But she couldn't hide anymore. In the staff locker room, she changed out of her scrubs and into civilian clothes. She placed her hospital badge on the bench, next to the resignation letter she'd written hours earlier. Her phone buzzed. A text from Director Morrison. Operational briefing at 1600 hours. Secure location. Come alone. Sarah pocketed the phone and walked out. The federal operative was waiting for her at the exit. Need a ride, Colonel? Sarah looked at him. Really looked at him. He couldn't have been more than 25. Eager, idealistic. The same way she'd been once. What's your name? She asked. Vasquez, ma'am. Specialist Marcus Vasquez. How long have you been with the Bureau, Vasquez? 2 years. You did good work last night. Kept your head. Followed orders, even when they didn't make sense. Vasquez straightened. Thank you, ma'am. But let me give you some advice. Sarah's voice dropped. This life, it takes everything. Your relationships, your peace, your ability to sleep at night. So if you have any other options, any other dreams, chase them. Because once you're in deep enough, you can't get out. But you did, ma'am. For 5 years. Sarah smiled sadly. I thought I did. Turns out I was just taking a break. She walked past him out into the afternoon sun. The black helicopters were still there, rotors beginning to spin up. Sarah approached the closest one and climbed inside. As the helicopter lifted off, she looked down at the hospital. At the place where she'd tried to be normal, tried to be just a nurse. Dr. Webb stood in the parking lot, watching her go. He raised his hand in a small wave. Sarah waved back. Then the helicopter banked and the hospital disappeared from view.